Okay.
Hi, Lily. Thank you so much for coming on our first ever episode of Diary of an Assistant.
Hi, Anna.
So just let's go through the questions. So we have 6 questions to go through. And just to start with, please may you introduce yourself, tell us your name, where you live, what your current job role is, and something interesting about yourself.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Lily. Live actually like whenever I speak to other EAs, they're always shocked that I don't live in London. So I live like out in Hertfordshire in the depths of the countryside, surrounded by nature, which is so nice. And then I am an EA, have been an EA now for just over 3 years, I want to say. I didn't go to university, so was literally have been an EA, which is kind of an untraditional route when I speak to other EAs, but I think has allowed me to thrive within the environment that I currently work in. And then, oh, a cool fact about myself. For the first time ever in my, probably since I stepped into fashion like 5 years ago, I've now pivoted out of it. But now my new boss wants to go and launch something in fashion. So, yeah, that's kind of interesting when I was like, let's go into marketing, and now my new boss is, yeah. But then I guess a fun fact about me, I guess that I didn't go to uni. I feel like that's always something when I speak to other EAs, they've gone to a training school or this, that, and the other. But I feel like as an EA, I've learned the most being in the thick of the job and being thrown in at the deep end and just taking everything in my stride.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the best way to learn. So how did you fall into your first role from school? Did you always plan to be an assistant? How did that plan out?
Yeah, so initially I left school in the thick of lockdown, because I'm only 24, I'm a baby. And literally I initially worked in recruitment and sales, which I think taught me everything now that I use as an EA, because you have to be very sort of forward thinking and like thinking of new ideas as to how to essentially solve problems.
Yeah.
And then I first went into sort of assisting whole teams of people back in 2021 at ASOS. And then I went into a role at Burberry, again, assisting a whole entire team of people, which is quite a different dynamic, but I think teaches you how to solely assist someone with your full wheelhouse to the absolute max. And then stepped into a role at Odd Muse and was there for 2.5 years from the real growth point of that brand, and was the first ever EA to my old boss. She'd never had one ever in her life. And I think the ways that I was able to make her life easier is like a paramount to me and how I manage my sort of day to day and managing another person. And then now I work with a marketeer called Sedge Beswick, literally assisting her with absolutely everything. She has multiple businesses and multiple business ideas. So knowing what is the priority within that role, and I guess kind of being the person that she can bounce her ideas off and saying whether I think that's a good idea or a bad idea, and sort of being that second hand. I am literally her sole employee. She has no one else other than a few freelancers, which I think is also quite nice as well, because I'm able to just know that she values me. And if I wasn't here, it's like, well, what is she doing?
Such a nice partnership, just the two of you.
Yeah.
Secondly, in response, so before this interview, we sent out a form and you responded saying there have been some pretty crazy ones in terms of funny or surprising moments throughout your career as an assistant. Can you elaborate on one maybe, or give us an idea of one that still makes you laugh?
Yeah. Gosh. There is quite a few that make me laugh. I've moved a dog twice.
From where to where?
So I moved him from the UK to New York, and then I moved him from New York back to the UK. He was here for a week and then to Dubai.
Oh my god, that dog's done more traveling than
Yeah,
you.
it's done more. Yeah. Trying to think of other things. God, my old boss told me she wanted to move to New York, and 4 weeks later she was in New York with an apartment. Literally through me finding her one and then relocating the dog, which took 2 weeks in itself.
Dog, furniture, household items, everything over.
Yeah, yeah,
Gosh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah, which is kind of nuts.
Were you back and forth a lot during the time? Did you find?
No, I didn't go. I never went at all. She was very much like, you stay in London and keep an eye on the office.
Yeah.
So yeah, I never went ever. Still have, I've never been to the US. So
Hello.
yeah, I've been to all the other side of the world, but never to the US, which is interesting. But
It is, yeah. To be fair, I've been twice, so I'm not, I'm not a big US traveler either. But so you planned all of that move, building a
yeah,
network in New York, which you then needed from the UK, and also having never
yeah,
been. Gosh.
yeah, having never been, not knowing the location whatsoever, literally not knowing anything about US laws, all of that sort of stuff, leases, which to get a New York rental lease, oh my God, there's over probably 45 documents alone that have to be filled out. Yeah, which is kind of mental. Yeah, when I first started with her, she decided that she wanted to do London Fashion Week with 4 weeks' notice. So having to facilitate that, find a venue, etc., etc. I've facilitated a whole entire sample sale that had over 3,000 people come to it in London, and literally the venue couldn't even fit the amount of people because my boss thought that only 300 people would.
And it was so popular that you had 3,000.
Yeah, that we had to shut the queue and turn people away. Um, yeah, it was crazy. I opened the Bond Street store that they now have within, I think it was, we signed the lease, and then the store was open within 3 weeks of the lease being signed, and I had my wisdom teeth out in that time as well.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
because of the growth of the business being so extreme, was everything just really last minute?
Everything was always that she wanted it yesterday. So
Yeah.
it's like managing the expectations of someone like that sometimes it's not always possible, because it is quite tricky to sometimes have to turn around and say no to someone that really, really wants something. Like, for example, when we opened the Bond Street store, she wanted a marble countertop. And luckily, I have a contact that my parents use for our house right now. And he was like, yeah, I've found you one piece of marble. It's the last one. Do you want it? And I had to call her and be like, if you want this, I need to decide in 5 minutes. And she was like, yep, we're having it. And it was then in the store, literally 5 days later, built. Just like things like that,
So
are
that
crazy.
exact, yeah, and that exact scenario shows the importance of like valuing your network, because
Yeah,
like that one contact like save the day, and it's always that like that person that you met that time that sort of you ring and you're like, any chance you can help.
yeah. Having that black book of contacts for
Yeah.
any EA, I would say, is the thing that I always think is the most key and important. Like, I have so many contacts in my phone that I'm like, I know that they're for that thing.
Yeah.
And knowing that when people are in certain locations, I have contacts that can be used for that, essentially. Like, even like tiny little things that you would think, oh, it'd be really easy to get a taxi, like having a taxi contact in France, and like just small little things like that sometimes Ubers can take way too long, or the taxi doesn't turn up that you've actually booked, and having those like backup plans, essentially.
Yeah. And this takes us on to our next question. What's it actually like being an EA to the founder building a brand as fast moving as Odd Muse was?
God, I would say it was like, I'm no longer in that role, but it was absolutely wild. Like, whenever I speak to other EAs that are like, I want to work in a fashion brand, I'm like, you need to prepare yourself. And like, my boss was based across 2 different time zones in the time of me assisting her. And it's like, you need to prepare yourself to be able to be switched on at all hours of the day when you are working for a fashion brand. Because, for example, there was one time when someone set fire to the rubbish outside the front of the store, and the store, luckily the police came by in time and put the fire out. But it's like things like that when you're working in a big brand that becomes bigger than it initially was, that you don't even think of, that
Yeah.
have to be like essentially dealt with and managed through an EA without having the founder to have to even think about that, basically.
What's the most chaotic 24 hours you've had in
Oh my
this current
God.
role, your new one, or that one, or any of the roles you've had?
God, in my current role, I would say when we just went to Cannes Lions and did an event on a yacht, and that was probably the most chaotic 24 hours of my life. We landed like Monday morning, and then my boss's flight was delayed. So I had to make sure that we had like the food shop in for her two little girls because they were also coming for the week as well with her husband. And then the next day, making sure that everything was set up for the yacht, that we had like all the guests knew where they were going because we had to do it by 3 words because it's just in a random port in Cannes. Um, and then running around like a headless chicken, making sure that all of the like merch pieces that we were taking, because it was in collaboration with another brand, while then networking during that day before I then had to go back and get ready, and just like managing all of the moving parts to an event that was a huge success. But it was like very much like go, 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 go. From the moment that we arrived, there was no like, or I've got 5 minutes to look at my emails. Like, it was head trying to sort other things out. And then in my old role, most chaotic 24 hours, God, probably the day before the Bond Street store opened, I would say. We had a party with like all of the staff in the store, and the store wasn't even ready. Like, we had the man come and hang up the curtains the day before the store was meant to open. Then the speakers didn't work. I had to call the Wi-Fi man, and like he was then trying to like reprogram the speakers. It was just a bit nuts, basically. It was like crazy, crazy, crazy. But then the next day it was like a huge success. So it is just like those managing of expectations. And if you do have to have those difficult conversations, just being upfront and honest and being the person that can try and manage those fires when they do happen, I think is the key part of being an EA, because it's not a job that is for everyone either. That's the thing that I think people forget, that not everyone likes to think it's just glamorized admin. It's definitely not. There's no way it's just glamorized admin. Like, it is basically being that other person, the other side of that person's brain at times, because you have to be thinking of the next thing and making sure that even just like simple things like that an EA probably does day in, day out, like managing their calendar, like making sure that then they're also then not getting burnt out because they've got too much on or haven't got time to be creative if they are creative, like the two people that I've assisted are. And just like managing those and even like when things do change, just being able to be reactive as well is like the huge other thing. Like, if you can't sort of deal with having multiple things pulling you in different directions, it's being able to manage that as well. And like, essentially you are a sole person unless you do work in a team of EAs, but even still, I feel like when I've heard of people that work in a team of EAs, they're all managing different things, so they can't essentially help each other most of the time. So it's being able to be independent, and I guess relying occasionally on your network for when you do need help with things that you can't solve yourself.
Yeah, I think that's so nicely said, because the assistants, I think even amongst a team, you're working on such different projects, and this sounds
Yeah,
ridiculous. By the time you've explained what's been happening and asked advice on what to
you
do,
could have asked someone else.
done it yourself. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it is such an independent role, but like you said about not going to uni, but having learnt so much already in your career being an assistant, it does give
Yeah.
such a rounded picture of everything that happens within a business, especially with Odd Muse, because you saw it from like day dot all the way through.
Yeah, to then now, where when I first started, there was 9 employees. When I left the business, there was over 60, which is crazy. Yeah, and I pretty much managed most of the onboarding of those employees in that time as well as part of my role.
HR as well.
Yeah.
What changes to the role have you noticed since you started?
So the role that I'm in now, she had had an EA previously when she owned her business before she exited, but she wanted an EA now for like her sole is basically she is essentially self-employed and is a marketing consultant. But I've noticed that she's actually been able to switch off as of an evening. Like she before was when I first started would be emailing me at say like 10 o'clock at night every single night. And then now I probably notice it maybe like once a week, but it's because she then has a day off on Friday to be with her kids. So it's like she now is, I've been able to improve her work-life balance and her relationship with work through the things that I am doing. And then I would say in my role previously, God, so much change from when I first started. They just used to move me around the business to learn all areas of the business, basically. And then when I left, it was basically that my role had become an absolute monster. And they actually split it into two roles in the end when I left.
Really?
So, yeah, it got split into a HR role. Actually, no, tell a lie, three. A HR role and an accounts assistant role, and then a EA.
So you can, that just shows you what the like mass pressure that you're capable of taking
Yeah, exactly.
across three. I mean, it's a huge compliment to you that you were managing it and sort of surviving, and then obviously
Yeah,
now that they've split it, yeah, and I think it's probably the best training you could ever have, being shoved with so many different.
yeah. And so many moving parts and
Yeah.
managing multiple different things, I think, is the thing that also teaches you the most. I always say to people that if you want to be a successful EA, always start in like if it's not with an ultra high net worth individual, which some people do work with, if it's in a business, I would say you're better off starting in a startup because that's where you learn the most and you get the most exposure to every single area of the business. Because realistically, some EAs don't want to be an EA forever. Whereas like some EAs do want to be an EA forever. So it's learning actually what you enjoy as well, being in a startup environment. Like
Yeah.
I know for sure that I don't want to ever touch finances again because it's not my forte whatsoever. But being an EA is what I enjoy. And like eventually I've said that I'd like to almost build my skills and to a level where I can be essentially like a consultant head of people or chief of staff essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you beat me to it. I was going to say, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I don't know if you've got anything you want to add to that.
Yeah. So my probably like long-term goal would be to be like have essentially like an agency of EAs that are essentially VAs, but also do then go and do that in-person time with people. Because what I've noticed in the businesses that I've worked in is I now near enough work fully remote, but having that one day a week in person with my current boss is literally like so valuable because when you are in a room with a person, it's that they can just say something, even just like they have an idea, but they're like, oh, I'm not going to WhatsApp you that. Is being in the room with that person and having that time to like bounce off each other, I think is so important as an EA. And like, I think sometimes that does get lost when you are just literally fully remote, which I've like other EAs and VAs that I've spoken to, they're like, I do sometimes struggle to know how the other person on the other end of the computer is actually feeling, like the person that they're looking after. Yeah.
Yeah, I think exactly. I think if remote, it takes longer to really get their personality, how they'll respond to certain things and what the way that they want it. So it's just a case of, yeah, obviously if you can get in person, then you can just pick up those characteristics so much quicker.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, thank you so much for running us through these questions. Is there anything that you want to add in terms of like the assistant industry as a whole? I know your thoughts on sort of AI, where you see everything going, and
Yeah, I would say my opinion is AI is never going to replace an assistant,
Yeah.
is what I literally say to people all the time. They're like, AI is going to replace your job. And I'm like, no, it's not. It actually makes my life easier, if anything. There is nothing quite like having human interaction with someone when you're assisting a founder. Like, even the messages you're sending on behalf of them to other people, if AI replaces that, it's like that whole human interaction is completely gone. Like, as an EA, we should be embracing AI and the things it can actually help us with, not thinking that it's going to destroy our jobs, because realistically, it's going to then mean that we have more time to do other things, and it makes your day a little bit easier and takes 5 minutes that you can spend on something else
Yeah.
elsewhere, basically.
And exactly what you were just saying about having that day spent with your boss, that is exactly what an AI wouldn't be able to do, is
Yeah,
pick up those bits of information that you do when you're together. But yeah, I think if anything, it's going to empower the role of an assistant, and suddenly the assistant will be
100%.
this absolute like weapon of efficiency, and they'll be
Yeah.
useful more than ever.
Yeah, 100%. And like, even just like simple things like it reviewing things and picking out certain words in something, if you think it's like, I don't know, screaming red flags, being able to put it into AI and like
Yeah.
it doing that for you in something that would normally take like, I don't know, a half an hour to an hour to read a document, and it does it in a matter of seconds, is like,
Yeah, you're like, thank you. On to the next project. Thank you so much. It's been so, because obviously we met when you were still at Odd Muse, and it's really interesting to hear your sort of journey and where you're at now. And but yeah, thank you so much for coming on and talking to me.